The script discussed in this video can be found on GitHub, which is linked to on our lab website. If you go to tsg-lab.org and then you click on the LCPC transform page, you want to click on this link called post-processing tools. And it's this folder right here, loading plot script. If you click on it, this is the Jupyter Notebook, and this contains the practice files. Hi there, this is Dave Nguyen of the Tissue Spatial Geometrics Lab. In this video, we will learn how to run this script called loading plot for PCA from a CSV file. So the input of this script is a CSV file, and it needs to be structured like this. The first column should be the name of the features or variables that were considered in PCA. And each PC is its own column. And the names of the columns need to be capital PC1, PC2, so on and so forth. Now, this script is meant to work with the file that was outputted by two other scripts in our lab. The first one is called PCA biplot screed plot for DCI PCI matrices. The other script is called PCA median standardization for LCPC FFT data. Both of these scripts will output the loading data that is meant to go into this script. For this script, you will have to change information in step 2 and step 3, which I will explain. Now, in the GitHub repository that contains this script, there will also be practice files. It will be these two. This is the loading plot data from PCA of vectorized DCI matrices from our glycan projects. Let's preview it. It looks like this. And the other practice file are results from doing PCA on the shape analysis done by the LCPC transform. And the data looks like this. Here the features are the bin numbers. So one is bin 1, bin 2, bin 3, bin 4, bin 5. These are the frequency bins. Let me copy the file path to this one first. Going to the script, we first have to make sure we run the cell that contains the dependencies. And this video, I assume that you know how to install these libraries in case you don't have them. Next, first thing you have to do is you have to paste in the file path to the CSV file that you want to work with. And you want to make sure that it's in quotation marks, either single quotations or double quotations, so that it's a string. And you can always run this here, this cell, to see the table printed, the first 6 lines, so you can make sure that you have the right data loaded. The second thing you need to change is here what you want to graph. Here by default is PC1 and PC2, but later on we will change it to be other combinations. Then in step 3, here is the tricky part. Okay, you get to define what parts of the loading plot you want to exclude. So let me explain the logic of these 4 values. So there are 3 zones of exclusion. X super low, anything smaller than this value is excluded from the graph. X super high means anything above this value is excluded from the graph. And then X low and X high means that anything between these 2 values are excluded, meaning you only draw arrows for points that are in the white zone here and here. Okay, the same applies for the y-axis. I'm just not going to draw it, but you can draw the same thing for the vertical y-axis. There's 3 zones of exclusion. So the default settings, the X low and X high are very small numbers. You see here, minus 0.001 to positive 0.001, meaning probably nothing is going to be excluded, right? This grade range is very narrow to begin with. And if something is excluded from this range, it's probably going to be insignificant to your data. And by default, X super low is a very large value, minus 100. X super high is positive 100, meaning there's a lot of area here that is included. For the y-axis, it's the same default settings. The reason why I set the X super low and X super high to be 100 is so that it's highly unlikely that you'll get some arrow in your loading plot cut off, because I'm not sure loading plot values ever go beyond 100 in either direction. Okay, so once you've filled in this information, you can run everything. You can run each cell separately or do run all. Here in Visual Studio Code, this button means run this cell and everything below. You click that, there's only one more cell below, and under that is the loading plot. And for the loading plot, you can copy and paste or just click and drag onto your slide software. Here it is. Okay, to keep a record of it. So this is PC1 versus PC2, the default comparison. As you can see, you have these 4 arrows, the longest one being bin 41, then 42, then 43, then 38. These 3 are all the same line, and they're close. The angle to the x-axis, which is PC1, is small, which means these 4, they heavily influence the variance in PC1. So now let's change this to PC1 versus PC3. I just changed here, PC3, and again, I run everything, and now the graph changes. Okay, and it says PC1 versus PC3. Again, I can click and drag this. And let me create a new slide. Let me click, drag this here. And there you go. Now we have, this was 1 versus 2. Now this is 1 versus 3. As you can see, 1 versus 2, 38 to 41 are close to the x-axis, which is PC1. And here, when you compare 1 to 3, they're even closer. So in the view of PC1 versus 3, these get even closer to PC1. And now let's plot PC2 versus PC3. And I'll click this, run all again, and I get a new graph. Again, I'm going to click and drag this, drop it into my PowerPoint, and now I have PC2 versus PC3. And this is helpful to know because one of the most useful things for understanding your PCA results are these loading plots. It tells you which features in your data most influence each principal component. Notice here that in PC1 versus 2, this group, 38, 43, 42, 41, so 38 to 41, okay, are close to the x-axis. In PC1 versus PC2, they're still close to the x-axis, but here you see that they're also close to these set of arrows, 34, 36, and 35, in other words, 34 to 36. Right, you see this acute angle here, it means these are correlated, positively correlated with each other. But if you look at PC2 versus PC3, you now see that this group, 38 to 42, is anti-correlated. They are anti-correlated to the group that is 34, 35, and 36. You see that previously here in PC1 versus PC3, they're correlated positively. Here, they're greater than 90 degrees apart from each other, so they're anti-correlated. You see, so information like this is very helpful in understanding how your 3D PCA data, how the clusters separate, and this gives you indication as to why, what rows or what features in your data are causing them to separate in PCA space. Remember, this is not PCA results, this is the loading values, not the PCA values. But the loading values help you make sense of why your points cluster separately in the PC values space. Now, for illustrative purposes, let's load the other practice data set. So here we're going to load this one. So I'm going to copy its file path, and I'm going to go up here and I'm going to paste it. When I paste that, make sure it's a string, meaning it's between a single or double quotation marks. And I'll run everything. And the first plot that pops up, let me change this back to PC1 versus PC2, which is the default. There you go, PC1 versus PC2. And I'm going to create more slides here. And I'm going to duplicate this 3 times. There you go. So this I'm going to click and drag here. All right, so this is our PC1 versus PC2. And we see that for PC1, which is the x-axis, okay, you have the feature called 5D node score. It has the most influence. Okay, it's a small acute angle relative to the PC1 axis, the horizontal axis, and it's the longest arrow, has the biggest influence. And you see 3C node score, okay, is anti-correlated to 5D node score. And here, for PC2, is this arrow here, 4D node score, okay, has a lot of influence on the variance in PC2. So let's do plot 1 versus 3, run it again, and here it is. This is 1 versus 3. So I'm going to create a new page. I'm going to click and drag, and here's 3, and here is the slide for 2 versus 3. 2 versus 3. There we go. And I will click and drag. And this is 2 versus 3. Now notice in this one, in 2 versus 3, is very cluttered. And we say we want a nice figure. This script allows you to filter out all this right here to remove the clutter, so all you see are these big arrows, which is why there are 3 zones of exclusion, because the clutter is usually in the middle. So if you expand this middle gray box, then you will exclude all the small arrows, so that all you see are the big arrows that end up in this white space right here. So let's take a look at our data. So here, looks like a lot of the arrows end between, in the x direction, -2 all the way to +2. So if I expand the middle exclusion area to be -0.2 to +0.2, it should clear up this graph. So let's do that. So here we go to the middle exclusion area. I'm going to change it to -2.2 and +0.2. Okay, -0.2, +0.2. And we're going to rerun this. And what do you see? There you go. Right, so you've gotten rid of all the small arrows that cluttered it. However, it looks like we lost these in the y-axis. That's right, because in the y-axis, these small arrows are also within the x range. So we got rid of everything here. That's right, so this is correct. So here I can make this smaller, and I can click and drag. You see now I have a cleaned up loading plot where I can clearly see what these most important arrows are. So that's what this script is for. But also, it allows you to zoom in, to ignore these long arrows and just focus on what are these smaller arrows, especially if you can't read their names because they're all overlapped. So what you would do in order to exclude the big arrows and include these middle cluster regions, okay, you have to make this middle region very narrow, okay, back to its original settings, very narrow, and you make these very big. So you move this all the way here, you move this all the way here. Let me show you. So for here, okay, so previously we wanted to, the original graph looks like this, and we wanted to just see this region in the middle here. Okay, so that means the x super low and x super high values, I'm going to bring it into here. Okay, I'm going to make those -0.2 and +0.2. So let me show you. So for x, I'm going to make, okay, the x super low is -0.2. The x super high is +0.2. Okay, and then the middle exclusion region, I'm going to bring it back to its original value right here. You see that? -0.001. All right, and then x high is going to be +0.001. Okay, it's the default setting right here. All right, when I do that, let's see what happens. Look at that. You see, now what you get is the opposite of the previous graph, right? This top graph got rid of the middle clutter to see the big arrows. This bottom one got rid of the big arrows to focus on the middle clutter, right? So here you can see the names better. Okay, now you can zoom in even more by changing the X super low value to be even in more and X super high value to be even in more. So that would exclude these big arrows, and meaning these small arrows will become bigger and more spaced out. Okay. And another thing you can do is to change the size of the arrowhead. You see, when you zoom in, the size of the arrowhead starts getting in the way, right? The way to change that is here, line 40. When you plot the arrow, you change the width to make it smaller. Right now, by default, is 0.01. You can do 0.001, and you run it again, and you see the arrowheads almost disappear. Okay, in fact, they do disappear. So if you want, you can also click and drag this, drop it into PowerPoint, and make it small. There you go. So you have these two. They're the same, except one has large arrowheads, one has small arrowheads. So you can see the names better. So you can zoom in as much as you want to see the names. So that's the logic of this script. It allows you to define the 3 exclusion areas. X low and X high defines the width of the middle exclusion area, which is this gray area right here, the middle exclusion area. By default, I make it very narrow. Okay. And then X super low and X super high defines the size of this gray area on each side here. And by changing these combinations, you can exclude and include whatever points you want. For the purpose of record keeping, it's always good to take varying views of the loading data. You always want to start with the big picture before you do any filtering. Okay, you want to do PC1 versus 2, PC1 versus 3, PC2 versus 3, and then you can include any zoomed in views. Also, it's very good practice to copy the name of the file that you loaded and put that in your presentation, so you know that this data came from this file. Because when you work on a team where somebody has to understand your data 3 weeks from now, 12 months from now, 2 years from now, it's very helpful for them to know which data resulted in this graph. So do yourself and your teammates a favor by including the name of the input file that produced the graphs.